So thank you, Andy,
You're
for
welcome.
your precious time. I know that you are in the Netherlands, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's like kind of magic for me because therapy. I started listening to this band in 1994.
Wow.
I was at school, and it's one of my favorite band ever, and because of you, I listen to metal today, and it's like a kind of still still young in my head.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you.
It seems that you're still young in your head too because of the music.
Yeah, I think, well, I'm a firm believer in following what is good for you. I think me playing music, I mean, especially whenever I got to 40 and then 45, friends of mine that are nothing to do with music would go, aren't you a bit old to be playing this noisy music? And my argument to them is, well, if you get a tax bill you don't like, you maybe are in a shop and you shout at somebody. Or if you have a lousy day at work after 5 glasses of wine, you have an argument and a fight with somebody in a pub. That's because you're not happy with your job. And I think, I'm happy you might not like what I do, but I'm happy in my job and I don't go around starting fights with random guys in bars because my job's shitty. So I think, and also times have changed as well. I think, music, you look at it, bands of all ages, bands that have been around for a long time play in front of people now. It's not seen as just heavy metal used to be seen whenever I was growing up, and punk rock as well, as something that people stopped listening to when they were 20.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case now. There's a lot of people where I grew up that were in their 50s still listen to Elvis. Nobody says to them they're too old to listen to Elvis.
But when I was at your Paris show,
Mhm.
the audience, we were something like in the all in the 40s, which is
Yeah,
great, and we're
yeah,
still alive.
yeah.
How's the tour so far?
It's been incredible. It started off in the UK. It's been a lot more successful than we expected. We had shows selling out quicker than before. Our Belfast show, which isn't until October, has already sold out. We've had huge shows in Manchester, London, Nottingham, Cologne, Hamburg. Tonight's show in Arnhem is sold out. Tomorrow's show's got a handful of tickets left. It's especially after COVID, we weren't sure how many people would want to go to concerts.
Yeah.
And we've been very, very humbled by this whole thing. We can't believe that, there's been this demand to see therapy, especially after like 3, 4 year break in some countries. So we're really, really enjoying it while we can.
And tour has changed so much. When I saw you leaving Paris in a hurry around midnight
Yeah.
in a small bus and no after party, so it's has changed so much because and maybe it was too much in the 90s, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the small bus thing, people say to us now, oh my God, you haven't got a tour bus. But you know what? That's why we're still doing this after 32 years. A tour bus costs £2,500 a day, right? So you think of that, if you tour like we do for 2, 3 months at a time, if you give us would we rather tour? I mean, the most we were traveling between venues is five hours. Mostly it's 2 hours. And to be honest, I'm a 57-year-old man. Do I want to travel on a tour bus or do I want to stay in a hotel? I'd rather stay in a hotel and I'd rather do it cheaply. And if at the end of this tour I can come home and pay my mortgage and have lots of money for my family, or if I can arrive like a rock star in a tour bus and go home penniless, I would rather go home and provide for my family. And I think there's so many bands that I know that in the 90s were friends of mine that can't do it anymore because they spent all their money on tour buses, on big light shows. Therapy's very lucky. We grew up listening to Black Flag and listening to Fugazi, and we learned a lot of lessons from those guys. And, it's none of us have ever cared about being rock stars. So, if somebody sees a van parked outside the Bill Noir, that's all right. I'm going home with some money for my family. If there was a tour bus there, the tour bus would have probably cost the entire fee of the show, which is crazy. You know, why do a job
Yeah.
if you're going to put it all into being like that? Yeah.
And especially there is no tour bus available in Europe, it seems so.
Yeah, I mean, but that's even crazier. You know, people are now panicking. So why not just rent a van? Or, you know, there's plenty of vans available, but people want to arrive like rock stars.
Sure. And when you're in day off, it seems that you're still reading books like Corporate Rock Socks.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great book.
What's about this book?
Well, it's a history of SST records, which was started by Greg Ginn from Black Flag. And whenever we started therapy in 1989, a lot of the records on SST, Black Flag, Sonic Youth, Minutemen, they were a big influence on therapy's early records. And it's kind of, I didn't really know the full story behind the label, how it started out, you know, what happened in the late 80s and early 90s. And it's a good book. It reminds me a lot of how much hard work has actually gone into being a punk band, especially if the music that you make
Mm-hmm.
isn't commercial. There is a lot of hard work and therapy. Whenever we started, there was a lot of hard work involved, you know, because no music business really existed in the north of Ireland politically. There was a lot of trouble, a lot of fighting. So music business didn't really want to exist there unless it was underground. The book's great. I would recommend it if anyone's interested in the history of hardcore and punk rock. It's a really great book.
And there's also a very good book for every therapy fans. So
Yeah.
it's, of course, it's written in French, but
Yes.
it's available in English. And actually, I bought it at the Paris show, and I didn't know about this book, and I learned a lot of things of your band. You know.
Mm. Yeah. Well, thank you. We're very, very grateful that the book is available in French, you know, because some people in Belgium, Switzerland can buy it, Canada,
Yeah.
and obviously the French people. And we were really, really pleased that Kicking Records decided to translate the book for us because it's great. And it's been a great success for us. People have been commenting on it. And I suppose really in 32 years now, we've never had a book or a biography, which is crazy considering, you know, how long we've been together. Yeah, so we're glad it's out there. I'm glad you got a copy. Thank you.
And what a journey through
Yeah.
the 32 years. And you know what which I like, you know, since the beginning of the band is that you're, of course, you come from Belfast and Northern Ireland, which is something unique, you know. I think you are the only band that I know from Northern Ireland. And so do you still live in Belfast?
No, I don't. I live in England. I live in Cambridge in England. Michael, our bass player, still lives in Northern Ireland. Our current drummer is from England. He's from Derby. But one of our engineers, techs, currently with us is from Northern Ireland. Yeah, it's one of those ironies. Now that flight and budget airways have become so cheap, I'm actually home quite a lot. I fly back home and see my parents. So yeah, I've been living in England. My wife's English. I've been living in England for 20 years, but I go back quite often, and we go back with the band as well.
But you got this punk and yeah, you know, this unique touch in the 90s, especially in the lyrics with the yeah this these topics about religion and something like this. Um, is Belfast different now? And
To be honest, Belfast was wonderful then because we didn't know anything different. We only realized when we toured the rest of the world just how unique a situation it was with army on the streets and fighting and many, many terrorist activities. But, you know, Belfast now, there's been a relative peace since 1998. There are now lots of concert halls where people can play. There are record labels. There are concert promoters. There are, you know, everyone comes to Belfast. Whenever we grew up, the reason why therapy has got such an eclectic taste in music is because bands didn't really want to play. They were scared. So whenever a band came, it could be Metallica, it could be Erasure, it could be the Smiths, it could be the UK subs, Susie and the Banshees. We would all go to the show because it was a gig. Whereas now it's like anywhere else in the UK or Ireland, you can go and see bands every night of the week, and there's media, there are magazines, radio stations, podcasts all coming from it. It's wonderful. There's a lot of great music as well coming from Northern Ireland at the minute too.
Okay. So on this tour, there are some surprises. Like I can remember in Paris, you played the song "Disgracelands." I think you haven't played yet this song.
We haven't played it since probably 1992 when the album was out. Where that album Nurse was released on 1992, and we played it on that tour. I don't think we played it since.
So you like to make surprises and to surprise maybe yourself too?
Yeah, well, it was we wanted to play an album off Nurse because that album was a big part of our history.
Yeah.
And we thought, well, Teeth Grinder was a single and people know that song, so what else can we play? And we took the opening track, Nausea, and we also took Disgracelands because we asked people on Instagram what tracks they like. And most people on Instagram actually like Disgracelands best. So we decided to put that in there. And it's strangely relevant at the minute after what's just happened in America and Texas, because the album was written in early 1992, whenever there was a few atrocities in America with random shooters and gun crime. And strangely, what happened a few days ago to those poor children in Texas, it's happening again.
Yeah.
30 years later. So it feels spooky. It feels strange to play that song now, knowing that since we've been on tour, the same thing is happening again.
The NRA is too big, too important in the.
It is, yeah. It's got too many important people, too much money. It's like anything else. Nothing will be done. And
on this tour, there is also a new song called Joy, right?
Yeah, we're playing a few new songs. The night that you saw us, we played Joy. It's like it's like Helmet meets Sugar. It's got a big heavy riff, but a really catchy chorus. We're also playing a song called Poundland of Hope and Glory, which is about the British government. Poundland is a budget shop in the UK where you can get anything for £1.
Okay.
And we think that the British Empire is becoming like a Poundland of Europe where you can get anything cheap. There's another song called Ugly, which is self-explanatory, which is how people feel after the pandemic and how the social distancing was an excuse for people to stay away from each other. Yeah, so we've been spinning those songs around. Yeah, but the night you saw us, we played the song Joy.
So there are a lot of you got a lot of ideas and new stuff for the next album.
Well, the new album's finished. I mean, before we went on tour, we recorded 10 songs with Chris Sheldon, who's the producer from Troublegum. The album is it's going to be available in January on Marshall Records worldwide. It's got 10 tracks. I like to think it's empathetic melodic rock. So if any Therapy fans like Troublegum, they like Cleave, they like High Anxiety, it's heavy with melodic choruses, and the lyrics all deal with trying to understand people. So, Joy, the song that you heard, was asking a friend, how come you've got so much in your life, but nothing gives you joy? We were going to release it before Christmas, but we thought it might get lost in what's the point in releasing an album when we can't tour it? Yeah. So we're going to release it at the end of January, and then we'll be on tour again next February, March.
And by the way, you're talking about Troublegum and Cleave, and I feel that Cleave is not so far from the Troublegum spirits.
No, I agree. We'd written the songs, and the record company heard the demos, and they said, well, this is very like what we know Therapy to be. The guy that signed us, is one of his favorite albums is Troublegum, and he said, this is kind of like Troublegum. So when we were looking for producers, they suggested Chris Sheldon. Now, we knew that Chris Sheldon had retired. He only mixed, he didn't produce records anymore. So I got his phone number because we knew the guy for years, and I phoned him and said, Chris, it's Andy from Therapy. I know you retired, but would you consider working with therapy again? And he said, yeah, I'm only going to say yes because I love you guys. So
Wow.
it was great. It was, he just came along and did that album. So you got, it was fantastic. Yeah, that's why like a song like Callow that's on Cleve
Yeah.
is, it could have been on Trouble Gum, you know, it's that kind of sound. So, and it was great to work with him this time around as well. So he's just, he's one of us, you know, he's a really good guy, and he's a very good sense of humor, which is important when you're with us.
So what's the name of this next album?
It's called Hard Cold Fire, and that's from a poem by a Northern Irish poet called Louis MacNeice. And he said that the people in the north of Ireland have a resilience and a strength which is like a hard, cold fire, because there's a specific kind of rock in Northern Ireland called basalt,
Mhm.
which is very strong. And he he said that the people in the north have got this strength of this basalt rock, and it's a hard, cold fire. We just thought it was a perfect example of to describe us.
And what about the your uh, the business for therapy with, especially with the labels, and because you Nurse, your very first album was signed on a major, which
Mhm.
is incredible, and it's you yeah, it was pretty hard after um, your fourth album. And so what's your way to deal with record labels today?
Mm. Well, I think what a lot of people don't realize is that before we recorded Nurse, we had released one single ourselves on our own label and two EPs, mini albums on an independent label, Touch and Go in America through Rough Trade Ouija in the UK. And by the time we signed, we'd already been together for 3 years as a band and released this. We'd already toured Europe as well. So it's not like we were a band together for 6 months that ended up on a major label. So whenever the major label thing began to go and fall to pieces, we were a working band. It wasn't a tragedy for us. We've got friends that were in bands that made their first record release on a major, and when they lose the deal, it's devastating for them. They find it a tragedy. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we have a certain way of working. We're very aware of the countries that we're popular in. We're very aware of the touring that we have to put in to sell the records. We know that things have changed these days. We know that a band like us that's been around for so long isn't going to get played on mainstream rock radio stations. But that's not something that makes us unhappy. It's just realistic. So we know if we want to reach our fans and reach new friends, we tour and we release records and we do our best that we can to let people know that they're out there. But it's a working model that we're happy with.
Okay,
Obviously, yeah.
it's more family business, I would say.
Yeah, it's like a small family business, but it works well for us. And I think it means that we don't have to. What I don't miss about the 90s is the kind of unpleasantness of the business where people are unpleasant to each other, promoters, PR people, all to make something which is meant to be joyous. And that's our argument as a band to people. We got into this music in Northern Ireland because there was political turmoil, there was religious turmoil. We were different religions in the band. Making music got rid of all those barriers. And any time that we have ever been in a spot of bother or that we've thought things are awful, we've just thought, well, the music's still great. We still enjoy touring and playing music. And I suppose the time that the music itself makes us unhappy is the time we will, albeit. But as from thankfully, so far we've enjoyed it. Mhm.
Did you get the impression to in the 90s there like a politic shaking hands like yeah, with a big smile? No.
Yeah, well, in the 90s, it was great. It was the classic story. The first two records we did, Nurse and Trouble Gum, the record label let us do what we wanted. Trouble Gum, after 6 months, had sold 900,000 copies, and all of a sudden, we got the guys stepping in, going, Well, to tell you a story about that, when we first signed worldwide with Polydor Universal, every gig we went to, we get young guys who had just started working at the company, and the young guys liked Husker Du, they liked punk, and they were sent to work with us. Once we started selling records, they sent in the older guys who worked with Janet Jackson, Bryan Adams, and Sting, and all of a sudden it was right. You guys have sold 900,000 records. Now you need to sell 1.5 million records, and it became a business, and that caused friction because we just wanted to make the music we wanted to make. We would, with some of the money they spent on videos was absurd. We made a video for Diane, which cost an absolute fortune. I could have bought a large house with the money that was made for that video. But I think our time with a major label ended at just the right time because it wasn't going to work for us and it wasn't going to work for them. There's only so much that they're going to get out of a guy that looks like me, thinks like me, and sings like me. It's you can throw as much money at it as you want. It's not going to turn me into Ed Sheeran. So I think it also meant that we could then regroup and then start doing what we do without any pressure. And that's the thing. Making music without pressure is such a precious thing.
And we can see on stage, of course, there's a lot of joy. Yeah, the three of yours playing together. And you played also Judas Priest song.
Yeah, that's for Michael, the bass player.
Yeah, and of course, I think Michael is the most metalhead in the band.
Oh yeah,
I would say.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it seems that I'm going to see also Judas Priest in 2 weeks at Belfast.
Yeah.
So, could you imagine playing with Judas Priest on stage, because you have made so many duets? Like I saw in this book, and I saw the video this morning. Your duet with Sting on the French TV.
That's right. Yeah.
You made a duet with Ozzy. So many duets. It's. Could you imagine a duet with Judas Priest guys, with Rob Alford?
I don't know. I mean, I know that would be a dream come true for Michael. So I think Michael could really do that. I don't think I'm metal enough for Judas Priest. Whenever we formed the band, my thing was punk. I liked punk, and I like kind of really obscure. I like punk and Captain Beefheart and really obscure new beat dance music. And Fife, the drummer, liked hardcore and obscure dance music. And Michael liked really, really bizarre techno music, but his favorite thing was heavy metal. And I think, he knows every single Judas Priest record. When we go on tour, this tour included, Michael brings a heavy suitcase.
Yeah.
And every single time we go to, he finds a vinyl record shop that specializes in heavy rock. And he buys original copies of all his favorite records. So he'll have the catalog number of the first issue of, I don't know, an album like Napalm Death Scum, or Judas Priest British Steel. Or if he's in France, he'll look for a record by Trust. You know what I mean? And he will get these records on vinyl. And then whenever we go and play Ireland, our tour bus brings over the suitcase with all the vinyl to his house, and he has them all stocked in an archive room. So he's Mr. Mel. So it's a long way to answer your question, but yes, I think if anyone was going to play with Judas Priest, it would be Michael.
You only toured also in the USA, and do you have plans for guys in the USA in the next years?
Well, I don't know. I mean, our last few records have actually been released in North America, because up until 2001, our records were always released, and we toured America so much from 1992 to 2001. I mean, in 1993 and 1994, we did tours in North America 3 times each year. But since then, our records haven't been released in North America up until Cleve. Cleve was released in North America again. So it might be a bit more possible now that we have a record deal in America. We do get so many people getting in touch with the band, but it's, again, like we said about the tour bus, it's expensive. If we went back there, it probably would make sense to play with 2 or 3 other like-minded bands fly over cheaply, borrow equipment. But it's not something that we've ruled out. It's just been something that we've had no interest in until recently. But hopefully with Marshall Records and a worldwide deal, this might change.
Okay. And what's next? So next album, new album next year. And this summer, you play Wacken, right? In Germany?
Yep, we play Wacken in Germany. We're playing a lot of festivals. Wacken's the big one that we're excited about, but we're also getting festivals added. Every 3-4 weeks, we're getting offered festivals. So the plan is we finish this tour on the 12th of June, and this is the Greatest Hits tour. We'll have been on the road for 9 weeks. We will play a summer of festivals that will take us all over Europe. Then in November and December, we're doing a thing which is, it's just in the UK at the minute, unfortunately, which is like called We Love Your Early Stuff. We're going to play very, very small venues. I mean, we're talking 200 capacity venues, and we're only going to play either really, really early Therapy stuff before Trouble Gum,
Wow.
or the stuff that we have made off albums like Crooked Timber, which is quite alternative or avant-garde. So we're going to do that, and that's going to be, I think, 12 shows. The new album will come out at the end of January, February, and then we'll be back over touring that all around Europe in March. Yeah.
Great.
So from now until next summer, it's going to be very, very busy.
And it seems that you never stops. I mean, it demands some kind of energy. Is it is it easy to tour nonstop and to be healthy?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't really drink much alcohol anymore. I used to in the 90s a lot, and I've noticed since I exercise, watch my diet, and just drink water, all of a sudden, miraculously, I'm able to tour without feeling crap. So, yeah, that's why I would say to anyone over 40, maybe don't party every night, and you'll be able to do this. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Andy, for this great interview.
You're welcome. It's been lovely talking to you. Thanks for the support. Thank you.
And hope to see you next year in Paris. Could be great.
I hope so. Thank you.
Thank you.